Hello and welcome to Deja View, the Ithacan's weekly review podcast. I'm your host, Princess Jake Leary, and I'm here today with Antonio Ferme and Liam Conway. We're going to talk about Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I forget the name of constantly. I keep calling it Wreck-It Ralph 2. Didn't realize that Wreck-It Ralph is nowhere in the title of this movie, and it trips me up every time. I just thought you should know that because I'm going to say it wrong constantly. As you may have guessed by that long, unnecessary rant I just gave, this is the sequel to 2012's Wreck-It Ralph about video game characters with really charming personalities. And this one extends that a little bit further and introduces the idea of the internet into an arcade world. And Antonio, you've been tasked with summarizing this as quickly as you can.
All right, so pretty much in this movie, Vanellope's game is broken. Because they broke the steering wheel, and there's apparently only one replacement part on the entire internet, which is on eBay. So Ralph and Vanellope have to travel into the internet and try and get the steering wheel to save her game. And when they're in the internet, they run into a whole bunch of shenanigans, and the movie goes off from there. That's really about it. You know, very simple narrative to this movie, and it really focuses on a lot of the pop culture and internet references. Lots of Snapchat, lots of Instagram, lots of Twitter. And that's where we are, yeah.
And just to be clear, Ralph is the villain in a Donkey Kong style game,
right?
Who is in the first one, obviously, Wreck-It Ralph title character. And then Vanellope is the person he befriends, who is a kart racer character in a game called Sugar Rush, which is all pretty and flowery and candy-filled, which is not her personality at all. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. You've been very adamant about talking about the box office for this movie. And I think we're going to start there before we launch fully into a discussion of what this thing is and why I think I like it more than both of you do.
Well, that's a first. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys are in for a world.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, this movie made about $56.2 million domestically this weekend, and I think it's at about $192 million worldwide. So it was first this weekend. It beat Creed. I think Creed was only like $33 million this weekend domestically. So it brought in a good amount of money. I think it's like just tracking behind Moana, so that's about how it's doing right now. So it's a pretty big success for Disney.
Yeah.
And I think it will continue to have long legs throughout the holiday season until, you know, December 21st, where there's like 10 blockbusters coming out. So yeah. I think it will do well. Yeah.
And this is the Disney November release. This is the one that has the broad family appeal. Which I think, Coco last year?
Yeah, it was Coco, Moana, and then Moana was 2016.
Yeah, 2 years before. So it fits nicely into that niche. Except, this is a kid's movie. Like, this is very clearly a kid's movie.
Yes,
it has
very clearly a kid's movie.
It is, but there are some real interesting themes going on towards the end. And I think that's what I respond to most with this. I love this movie. Like, I'm not beating around the bush. I love this movie. I updated my letterbox to have this as like number 2 for my year. Yeah, guys, this is I think
what's number 1?
Sorry to bother you.
Okay.
Followed closely by Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again, and Peter Rabbit. So in case you think I have good taste, just let that speak for itself.
He doesn't.
No, I really don't. No, I love this movie for the subject it deals with.
And that's really surprising knowing your taste, because I feel like you wouldn't like this movie because of all the noise surrounding it. But
what do you mean by noise? Like
all the references and the Easter eggs. Because I could just see you complaining about it, but I'm surprised that you like it.
I do. I like this movie a lot. I don't really like the first half.
Okay.
Because the first half is what you described, where it's this very simple Ralph saying, I broke this, I wrecked this, I need to fix it.
I definitely felt that, because the first act was like, I did this, let's go do, and it was so simple, and it was like, all right, there's nothing really going on. It just felt they didn't do a good job like getting into it. But once they like got into the internet world, that's where the movie was really like its strongest part, when it was in like the internet.
And
once they got there.
There are interesting moments before, or at least what I thought were interesting moments before with Vanellope, where her world gets wrecked and she has no home because Ralph tried to help her out in a roundabout way, causing some problems.
Right.
And she has to deal with not having a purpose anymore, which, oh boy, if you're a kid, that's a really horrifying existential idea to have to wrap your head around. It's a horrifying existential idea to wrap your head around now at this age. But I was surprised by that, and I thought, okay, this is an interesting thing. This is a little moment in this movie that'll be fairly standard. And I thought of this like the first Wreck-It Ralph. I went into this assuming that I would feel the same way, which was, this is a good movie. This is a good video game movie. I'm never going to watch this again, but like, they did all right. And then as they go into the internet world and we meet some of the other characters who exist there, they start digging into some really heavy themes, like dealing with insecurity and how people grow or don't in relationships, which I never would have expected from this. And the trailer gives no indication of that whatsoever.
They also like very high key included the dark web, which that was one of the most surprising parts. They like went to the dark web, and I was like, wow, they're in the dark web right now in a Disney movie. So that was funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I enjoyed that bit. I wish there were some more jokes about the way the internet works, and I think some of the stuff they can't do because like you can't deal with the way adults use the internet in a movie meant for kids necessarily. I
just felt like a lot of the times, because it's a kids movie, they were like, oh, they're right there, and then they have to like censor themselves. You know what I mean?
How do you mean?
I feel like there were just more opportunities to tell jokes about the internet and certain platforms, but like we couldn't have necessarily seen that in this Disney movie because it's so like family friendly.
I kind of disagree. Like I think I don't know. I think
not the
easily. I love the first Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite animated movies like ever, and I think like this movie I think was really incredible for like the first 2/3 of it, and by the end I honestly barely even remember what happened at the end of the movie because I just felt it was so like just kind of like it was just I had seen it before. Like I felt like the first 2/3 were so different, and then by the end it was like the virus comes and like and
the
it was
big
just
boss. You compared it to Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
that was a good analogy.
And funny enough, Gal Gadot is actually in this movie as well. But it's like I felt like I said the first 2/3 were so strong, and then the third act was just like a big boss fight again, and I was like, all right.
I have the complete opposite experience from both of you. Like 100% the inverse.
Yeah, because we like the first 2 acts, and you like the
I like the second and third.
Okay.
What specifically at the end did you like, or can we?
I'm going to work up to that.
Okay.
I want to talk about Shank first because that's
I liked
the
her
first
character.
building block. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to like her character. I was like, oh, they're just using Gal Gadot because like she's an upcoming star and they want to use her. And I didn't really know what to expect from her, but I liked her a lot more than I thought. I thought there were some very cool things that they did with the character. I don't want to go into spoilers or anything.
Oh no, we're spoiling everything.
We're spoiling.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
No, she's like another racer in a GTA Mad Max kind of type of game.
Yeah.
Slaughter Race.
Slaughter Race.
Slaughter Race.
Right.
Which, if you think that's the polar opposite of Sugar Rush, you're correct, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Because Ralph and Vanellope go in there at one point to steal some loot to get money, and they encounter her, and Vanellope and her become friends. And that's the first thing I really like about this. You complicate Ralph and Vanellope's friendship by introducing somebody else, and having Ralph have to reckon with that. That was a really indirect pun, but I'm very proud of myself for it.
Yes, that was good.
Guys, I think I'm a very smart person deep down somewhere inside, and it's just blocked by all of the garbage parts of my brain that say, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Let's buy a princess costume meant for children. It says infant on the package for this, to give you an idea how hard this was to get.
So you nailed it.
I mean, you're wearing it very well.
I didn't want to wear pants, but I couldn't take the basic instinct joke that far, and I don't think we would have been allowed on YouTube. Anyway, moving back to what I was saying before about me not flashing the camera. I really like Shank a lot. I like that she exists as that opposite force for Vanellope. And then I like that they're supporting each other. You know, I like that Vanellope's struggle in this is finding a home for herself that's comfortable, but also finding a place that challenges her.
Yeah.
Which is what Slaughter Race ultimately becomes.
And I like how Shank's character wasn't trying to oppose Ralph. She was more like, and she even said in the movie, like, this is your decision, and Vanellope had to solve those problems by herself rather than, you know, taking, like, Shank against Ralph. It was Vanellope against herself and realizing what she really wanted, which was a really interesting element.
That's a strong point. Like, when you meet Shank, I fully expected, like, okay, she's going to be nice for now, and then later she's going to become the bad guy. And, like, I really appreciated how like she's just another part of the puzzle type thing, and she doesn't force.
She served her role perfectly. It was great.
And like, yeah, I. Oh God, I don't want to.
Do it. Whatever you're thinking, just do it.
No, because we're gonna talk about other stuff later, and I don't want to like.
Okay, you're preserving the integrity of the show.
Yeah.
I retract my statement.
So, no, but like I liked everything in the dark web, and I liked how the virus man is like a slug man and
that
stuff,
was cool.
and like all of that is really great. But like I said, I just thought by the end I was like, this is just nothing for me now. Like when I literally don't remember what's happening. I seem to vaguely recall like some kind of vortex or something, and they're like, I don't know. I just remember like a lot of loud noise and being like, I just don't care about this at all. And then I do agree with you in some way, Jake, that by the end of it, it ends with a good character moment between Ralph and between Vanellope, and it's very like emotionally moving, I think, and like, so that's great. But like, sorry, I don't want to like move away from what you were talking about more towards the beginning of the film, but like.
Well,
anyway.
I mean, even getting to that point, because I wanted to talk about Shank, because part of the reason I like this movie is because of the way her character functions, and because she's not evil.
Yeah.
You know, she is.
That would have really ruined it, I think.
And that would have been very typical.
Right.
This movie isn't interested in doing the standard, these two friends are going to go through this thing to get this item, and they're going to face this villain who is secretly, or this person, they're going to meet this person who's secretly evil. It doesn't happen with Shank. It doesn't happen with Yes. It doesn't happen with the Disney princesses, which we'll talk about later. The villain of this movie is Ralph. The first movie asks, and I'm quoting myself here, you can read my review on Ground Punch where I start it this way, but the first movie is about, can a bad guy be good? And that's what Wreck-It Ralph is. That's the concept. This movie is, can a good guy be bad? Which is, personally, way more interesting and way harder to...
talk about.
Well, not even harder to talk about, just harder to deal with.
Because most of us are good guys, and we relate to good guys more. You know what I mean? So it's more of a relatable thing.
It is, because Ralph does some really bad things in this movie.
But with good intentions. That's the thing.
He does bad things, and it doesn't matter that he has good intentions.
Right.
And they don't forgive him for that. He is jealous of Shank. He can't let Vanellope go because Vanellope is the only person he has in his life. Like, he has other friends. He has Fix-It Felix, the other person in his game, and the other arcade characters. But like, Vanellope is the person and the reason he got out of that hole in the beginning, like the darkness in the first movie, and actually had a place. So the idea of losing her is very hard to him, and he, for the sake of preserving his relationship, does bad things. And that's something that happens a lot in actual relationships. Insecurity and jealousy and like psychological abuse is something that can happen even if somebody loves somebody else. Like, it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it good. And that's what this movie is about. That's so strange, and even then, they don't come down one way or the other. Like, it's Vanellope's choice to forgive Ralph. That's the other side of this movie. I think Shank, talks to her at one point and says, yeah, you have to make this choice.
Yeah.
You have to do this. Best friends don't need to share the same dream. And she gets mad at Ralph, and rightfully so, but doesn't ever have to forgive him for being bad.
Well, I like that Ralph also, he doesn't really ever argue like, oh, but I had good intentions. Like, he fails, and then he says, well, I'm just going to continue to work harder and try and make this better. I feel like there is not, maybe I'm wrong, but you look skeptical, Jake. That's why but anyway, I feel like he doesn't ever sit there and complain but I tried, sorry, I tried, but I'm gonna give up now. He doesn't give up. He keeps trying and keeps going even when he fails constantly.
Yeah, he's like, we came here to fix your game, and that's what we're gonna do.
Right.
And he kept to that, which is a really good part. And I thought one of the strongest parts of the movies was his actions. it was a course of events. Like, he did something, and there was an effect after that. And, sometimes with these kind of movies, you kind of lose a sense of, oh, something will happen, and you'll forget about it later. But no, this movie, something happened, and as a result of that, this happened. And I really like that, where, your actions, they mean something.
Yeah, no, and again, that's the other part of this movie. Because, Ralph is the catalyst for everything that happens.
Pretty much.
And he
causes everything.
Yeah, he causes everything, and he causes everything because he's trying
to do something good, and as a result, he does a lot of bad things.
Yes. And in the beginning, we see him, wreck Vanellope's game by trying to make it more interesting for her, which she wants. And that's like a positive thing because he's trying to help her. But as the movie goes on, you see him doing positive things for Vanellope for his own benefit. He's not, and this is the other side of this that I like a lot too, where you'll see people, and this is a constant like philosophical debate, if you're doing good things for yourself or for somebody else. And a lot of the things that Ralph does, his motivation in this movie is self-serving. He is trying to get that wheel back so he can maintain the status quo and like doesn't want things to change. And it isn't until the end when he accepts that she is going to leave no matter what that change happens. It comes as a result of him, but he's also the force resisting it. And now that we're at the end, like, this movie really messed me up in a way that I don't think any other movie this year has.
Really?
Yeah. It really upset me in like a good way. Like, it's the reaction I want to have to a movie. I'm not the type of person who cries on public transport, but the T-Cat ride back from the movie theater was rough. It was a rough time. There are so many people on that bus who are very concerned for my well-being, I'm sure.
And then when they asked, "Why are you crying?" I just saw
Wreck-It Ralph too. Yeah, no, like I genuinely bad emotional things have happened in the last year. Nothing has gotten me like Wreck-It Ralph has, because I really responded to the idea of, oh, this good person did a bad thing, and acknowledged it and moved on. Like his friendship.
Which is all you can do, right?
Yeah, and I like a lot of.
He only had 24 hours to do what he had to do, which was get that wheel from eBay.
Well, no, he only had 24 hours to let his friend go off and do what she needed to do.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
See, again,
that's good.
This is where I come down on it. Like, the first half of this movie is a normal Disney fetch quest movie, and then the second half says, no, none of this actually. This is important, but this is not what this is about, and we're actively going to subvert that, which is what the second half then becomes, and that really got me. And then the moment where they say goodbye to each other, because that is the true Ralph accepting what happens.
Where he's waving, and then she's waving, and he's waving, and then she's gone, and he's
and
standing there.
That's what I was...
Yeah. I was very confused, but I understood eventually.
It was a sweet moment.
It was a sweet moment, and I felt it was deserved given everything else that happened. Again, really destroyed.
And it could have fell apart if the whole movie didn't do a good job. Because that movie, or that moment, could come off as cheesy if the whole movie didn't lead up to that. But because they did a good job with that, I thought it was a good moment.
Yeah, this is a movie about relationships, and they stay true to that the entire time. And that really did catch me off guard. Like, that really did affect me. In a way, again, I never would have expected. But because if we keep talking about this, I will start crying on this podcast. And I have sworn never to do that. We're going to go and talk about like the more fun side of it, which we kind of skirted around. There's a really interesting section in this movie where Disney pulls out all the stops and references everything that they own, which at this point is everything. Yes.
Half the Monopoly board.
Yep. We're going to go and we're going to talk about those references. Okay, so we touched on this a little bit in the first half, but the other big part of this movie is its references, because they are in the internet, and the internet is everything and has everything. So it gave Disney a chance to, show the Google building and also include all of their princesses. I'm going to start with you, Liam, because you specially requested this and I think have a specific take on it that I want to hear.
I'm glad you're going to start with me, because I was really hoping you would. I think, like I said, like the first 2/3 of this film are like easily my favorite part. And I think that's because I'm interested in scale, and I love that I felt they really captured the scale of the internet. I mean, it's like incredibly vast and overwhelming, and every little thing that they do is so true to what the internet is. But even outside of that, they still stay true to the roots of the first Wreck-It Ralph film, where they're referencing video games. And like, for me, like as a huge GTA fan, when they go into what's the game? Slaughter Race.
Yeah.
And you see the two like player characters walk into the like shack, and they're like, they walk and then they like stop and they walk. That was just awesome to me. Like everything in Slaughter Race was just so true to video game experiences that I myself have had. It was like just like the first Wreck-It Ralph film. Like the video game stuff is so strong, and on top of that, then they add the other layer of the internet and gaming on the internet. And I also really appreciated, like, a lot of people were concerned when the trailer came out that they were going to just make the internet Disney, but it's not. Like, Disney shows a lot of things that
in their own app.
They don't own, though. I mean, they show Google and they show Snapchat and they show all these properties. Like there's Amazon and there's. I really appreciated that it didn't feel like they were censoring the internet to just show things that Disney was not in direct competition with, because they just put it all out there. Like there are companies that are occupying the same market space as Disney, and they still represent them. And I loved like the pop-up ads and stuff like that. And I loved how stuff like even the princesses, they're not just there as a reference. Like they are important parts of the story. And like I love how like they're like, how could we play video games to make money? And Ralph's like, oh, we're gonna go to this pop-up ad guy. And everyone in the audience, like you're watching it going, Ralph, you idiot. Like you know you can't trust pop-up ads. Like it's great because the viewers' knowledge like of the internet going into the film informs you about things that happen that the characters are clueless about.
It's a fish out of water story, but everybody else is very familiar with the world. You know, everybody else, you know, we all use the internet. We understand how it works. So when Ralph is trying to figure out what e-boy means, we know what he means, and it's funny because I think that counts as dramatic irony. Does that sound right by all of our 9th grade high school English educations?
Yeah.
Cool. Dramatic irony. And I agree with that. Like it does feel appropriately large and doesn't feel entirely Disney until we get into Disney World, basically within the internet.
Like that feels natural because they say we're going to a fan website and they go to ohmydisney.com. Like it's not like, hey, the internet just is Disney. It's like it felt very natural to me. And also later I want to touch on the comments section thing and the YouTube stuff, but we'll talk. I want to talk about this.
I want to talk about the princess scene, the prison scene. Very different. Oh
totally
boy. Because clearly I'm invested in the princess part of this movie as an avid Disney princess fan. I am on the record on this podcast not liking references to things in pretty much anything we've ever talked about. Listen to Ready Player One if you want to hear me spew a half an hour of hatred. But I love this. I love this moment in the movie. Because in part, it's important for Vanellope. It like develops her character because she's able to give guidance to other people the same way Shank gives guidance to her. And 2, it's Disney poking fun at itself. Like there's commentary on the major flaws with Disney's portrayal of women and specifically the princess characters, and that stems back to like old-timey fairy tales.
Yeah, even like their movies, like The Little Mermaid, they're like, oh, like why would you do that? Like, like sacrifice that. Like they were just shitting on everything. It was great because like it was just like, I don't know. I felt like it was a very good way to put that. And I think they're all the original voice actors, right?
Oh,
I'm pretty sure,
the wrong guy to ask.
Or at least the ones that
actually
within reason.
Within reason, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Snow White, 1940s, probably not gonna be the same person. Yeah, no, it's a natural extension of those characters. It's a good bit of satire on those characters and the broader problems with them, because if you look at Disney princesses as characters, there's a lot of gross stuff going on there that doesn't take a critical eye to see. It's out there.
Yeah.
All of Little Mermaid is gross. The entire concept of that movie is socially unpleasant. And I would recommend reading things about that because we're running out of time and I don't want to shortchange it any more than I already am. Yeah, no, like these are references with purpose. Like they mean something and they matter, and it's not just a throwaway. And that's something that I was again blown away by. I think that's the moment I really started caring about this movie. Unfortunately, we are out of time. You guys will get a chance to plug yourself. I will be back in a second to scream into the void and potentially cry. But until the next time you're on, where can people find you?
I'm Antonio Ferme, and you can find me writing for The Ithacan, movie reviews and features and all that good stuff. And you can find me on Twitter at Antonio_Ferme.
I'm Liam Conway. You can find me writing for The Ithacan, and you can find me on Instagram at ThatGuitarBro.
I love that that's a bit more or less between you and our producer, Nick. But you deliver it like there's a lot of people watching, and I really respect that, Liam. I really do. Thank you for both being on. We're winding down in the semester. We just have another 2 weeks to go, so I don't know if you'll both be back. But I appreciate you sitting here and listening to me almost cry about this movie. Keep watching. We got one more little segment coming up that I think you'll want to see. Okay, we're going to wrap this show up with just me talking directly into the camera and really driving home why I care so much about this movie. And not only that, but like why I think this is such an important movie and arguably one of the more important movies this year. There's the obvious surface level angle that this is a movie about the internet and how to exist on the internet and how to filter out some of the bad of the internet. And that's definitely important, but that's not the most important thing. You can watch eighth grade if you want to see the real reason or a real examination of that. I think this movie is really important because you have a discussion of relationships that's very complicated and very deep and very unpleasant at times, but it's directed at kids. And I was obviously taken aback by it. I was obviously very moved by it. But the thing I didn't expect is that I felt like I learned some things about myself through it, which really sounds after school specially, but like that's what this movie does, and it does it well. The movie goes out of its way to say that you can be friends with somebody no matter where they are, no matter what their situation is, if you want to be. But if you don't, you're under no obligation to do it. And I think that's something that's very important for people to know, that like you're never obligated to be in a relationship, be it a friendship or a marital relationship or like a more casual relationship. You don't owe anyone anything. And you should do things for other people you care about, but as long as it doesn't come at the cost of something that matters to you. And that's heavy. That's heavy. That's something I still need to learn, and I've been around for 20 years. You know, you have kids who are 8 years old watching this movie, and that's something that I think is kind of profound. Wrapped up in a movie where, you know, a giant gorilla man buys a magic worm from a slug guy. Like it's a very strange hidden message in what would otherwise be a very whimsical kids comedy. So if you get the chance, please watch this movie. It is so much more than you could ever think it would be, and so much more than the marketing lets on. And with that oddly sentimental note for this goon show where I'm wearing a cape and a tiara, if you're not watching the video, check us out on YouTube. That's it. I already let our guests go and thank them again for coming on. And if you can, please subscribe to our show. Please listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you get podcasts. Maybe there's an exception to that, but our producer's done a good job of covering us. I encourage you very highly to watch the video of this show. Because if you are, you understand what I'm saying. I'm standing up here in an infant's Elsa costume with a $2 Party City crown. And I look amazing. But you wouldn't know that if you don't watch the video. So please, so many people work on this and work very hard. Check us out on YouTube, Deja View. For the show, I'm Jake Leary. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing.